And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Live picture there at the White House. Well, as you know, if you were watching earlier this morning, the president had a marathon-long cabinet meeting lasting almost 4 hours there. He took a lot of questions on a lot of topics from reporters, including and especially on where the diplomacy stands between Russia and Ukraine. Fox's Kevin Cork with those details. Let's listen.
It's very serious what I have in mind if I have to do it, but I want to see it end.
President Trump doubles down on his sanctions threat. The commander-in-chief telling Moscow to agree to a ceasefire to end the war with Ukraine or face deep economic sanctions.
It will not be a world war, but it will be an economic war, and an economic war is going to be bad, and it's going to be bad for Russia.
But unlike past remarks, the president gave no timeline or deadline for these sanctions. During a nearly 3.5-hour cabinet meeting at the White House, he also appeared upset with questions about Russia stalling on direct peace talks.
Just this past weekend, Sergei Lavrov was saying that Putin will not sign a peace deal with Zelensky because Russia views him as illegitimate.
Everybody's posturing. It's all okay? Everybody's posturing.
A week ago, President Trump said he was making arrangement for one-on-one talks between Putin and Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. Zelensky says he's willing and ready for the sit-down, but Moscow says the summit won't be happening anytime soon.
Russia is giving signals only that it is going to continue to evade real negotiations. This can only be changed by strong sanctions, strong tariffs, real pressure.
Meanwhile, peace negotiations continue. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff tells Fox he's meeting with Ukrainian officials in New York this week for more ceasefire talks. We'll see how that turns out. In Washington, I'm Kevin Cork, Fox News.
Kevin, thanks so much. So Kevin just referenced that interview Steve Witkoff did with Fox's Bret Baier just this afternoon. Lucas Tomlinson with more. Witkoff telling Bret Baier, the Russians have put a peace proposal on the table. It involves Donetsk. It may not be something that the Ukrainians can take here. So let's bring into the conversation national security analyst and expert and retired Marine intelligence officer Hal Kempfer to discuss all of this. Hal joins me. Hal, good to see you here. Where would you characterize where the diplomacy is right now? Is it in the middle? Is it at the bottom? Is it at the top? Where?
Well, I would say right now it's probably in the middle, but it's completely stalled. There's no forward momentum. And by the way, it's not just Donetsk. All right, maybe from a real estate standpoint, you'd say, oh, it's just the Donetsk piece of territory. They want Zelensky out of office. They also want to essentially disarm the Ukrainian military. They want basically Ukraine to completely lay down its arms and leave itself wide open for a future Russian invasion where they finish the job of wiping Ukraine off the map, if you will, as a sovereign nation. And that's the problem they're having is that Lavrov has kind of reiterated this time and again that they have not. He's basically said they have, and he hasn't said they have not forsaken these maximalist goals. He just keeps repeating these maximalist goals, and that's what really, when it boils down to it, that's what Ukraine cannot accept.
So, Hal, I guess I have to ask, what is the president waiting for on the sanctions question? Why is he giving Putin so much room, so much space here? Can't he just put the sanctions on, the tariffs on now? Why is he giving Putin so much leeway?
Well, I'm sure that's the exact question Lindsey Graham's been saying as well, which is why can't he just go ahead and do this? You know, he keeps kind of hesitating. I will say this. If he puts those sanctions in place, and keep in mind, these are what are called secondary tariffs, which means countries that buy Russian oil. The two biggest countries he's looking at is China and India. Now, we've already put a pretty big tariff on India of about 50%, but we have not done the same thing with China. If we do that with China, inevitably, that will cause a spike in the prices of goods coming from China. That spike in prices of goods coming to China because of the sheer amount of sheer volume of goods that come from China cannot escape having an inflationary effect on the U.S. economy. And as you know, he has an issue with the Federal Reserve Board on the prime rate. And if there's those inflationary indicators, even the board, even with the recent firing, if you will have a very difficult time lowering the prime if that happens.
So we're almost 2 weeks removed from the Putin-Trump summit at Anchorage. What can we say now, looking back on it? What came of it?
Not much, other than the fact that for Putin, it was a fantastic propaganda win for him. I mean, he got the red carpet treatment. He got to ride in the Beast, the presidential limousine. He basically got honored as a peer leader with President Trump. And it was very warm and cordial and respectful of his position, even though he's been a pariah on the international scene for about 3.5 years. He gets this warm greeting. And what does he have? What did he give up for all this? Essentially nothing. And right now he's just stalling and stalling and stalling. And this goes back to Putin's mind. If Putin believes he's winning, then why would you want to negotiate? And it's very clear that Putin believes he's winning. I mean, we look at it from our metrics. He's taken horrendous losses for rather marginal gains on the battlefield. In his mind, though, those are acceptable losses to make any gains on the battlefield.
So, Hal, in front of me, I have this exclusive report in the Wall Street Journal from over the weekend. I haven't had the opportunity to discuss it with you, and I want to put up the White House shot here. I want to read the first paragraph of the reporting. This is by Alex Ward, Michael Gordon, and Lara Seligman, our friends at the Wall Street Journal. So, Hal, they report this. This is from Sunday. That the Pentagon has for months been blocking Ukraine's use of long-range missiles to strike inside Russia, according to U.S. officials, limiting Kyiv from employing a powerful weapon, they say, in its fight against Moscow's invasion. So they say a high-level Defense Department approval procedure, which has not been announced, has prevented Ukraine from firing any U.S.-made long-range Army tactical missile systems or ATACMS against targets in Russia since late spring, Hal, according to officials. On at least one occasion, Ukraine sought to use ATACMS against a target on Russian territory, but was rejected. So you remember back in November, this was, I believe, a little after the election, President Biden finally relented and gave Ukraine the authority to do this, to strike targets inside Russia in a longer range. You and I at the time, I remember, we were discussing how would Trump approach that very question. And I guess now we know.
You know, it was interesting. Those missiles were going in there. Now, one of the problems they had with those missiles was quantity. We didn't have a lot of those missiles to actually give to Ukraine. And you remember when that happened, we talked about the fact that we just don't have that many of those, that particular category of longer range ATACMS missiles. We don't have that many of them that we can provide. So if you recall, when Trump came in, there's been multiple, on again, off again iterations where we basically shut down sending arms over to Ukraine. From what I gather, looking at that Wall Street Journal article, yes, there is this process where they have to review it, but I kind of got the sense that somewhere in that we turned off sending those missiles and we just never turned it back on. Now, I'm going to give the Trump administration a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. It could be that they held off sending those missiles because our inventory is so low.
Okay.
But I say that without any evidence to support that, because the administration has come back and said, oh, no, we didn't do that. But that would be a valid reason. If we just didn't have the missiles to send, that would be a reason why you wouldn't send them over there. It's if they said, look, we have to have these for the Far East, or we have to have them for some other contingency, I would understand that. But basically all we have now is what's reported in the Wall Street Journal, which is that it basically got, held up in red tape and none of those missiles went forward. And this is at a critical time when they really do need these missiles to go in and hit some of those deep strike targets in Russia.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering whether they were, basing this decision, and it's a review of the policy. That's how the White House and the Pentagon are describing it. I was wondering whether or not they were going to use this, as leverage to get, Putin to the table, and that has come and gone here. So we did get a statement, or I should say the Wall Street Journal got a statement saying this from the White House, that President Trump has been very clear that the war in Ukraine needs to end. There's been no change in military posture in the Russia-Ukraine at this time. This was from Caroline Leavitt in a statement. She went on to say Secretary Hegseth is working in lockstep with President Trump. So last weekend, this came out. Almost in tandem, President Trump posted on Truth Social that Ukraine could not defeat Russia unless it could play offense in the war. He said it's very hard, if not impossible, to win a war without attacking the invading country, saying there's no chance of winning. Do you see a contradiction at play here?
Oh, a big contradiction. You know, here are these long-range missiles, exactly what is needed for that offensive capability. And if the Wall Street Journal article is correct, we've been holding off sending those missiles to them. I mean, this is all part of that same rhetorical line, if you will, where basically President Trump had talked about, you know, we call it the Department of Defense, but I don't like to just be on the defense. We need to have a better term. Maybe we should go back to the Department of War, what it used to be called. This same sort of linking the offense with the defense, if you will.
Okay.
And of course, that's become one of his criticisms of the Biden administration, was that they just gave arms for Ukraine to defend themselves and wouldn't give arms for Ukraine to attack or go on the offensive. I think it's a little bit more involved, and there's a lot more nuance in that. And certainly, you know, I've heard President Trump, of course, part of that was a big concern that the Russians might use a tactical nuclear weapon in Ukraine for a long period of time. And I have to say that President Trump has brought up the threat of Russian nuclear weapons many times in explaining his decision-making. So I hear this, but I hear contradictions, and I kind of hear contradictions within contradictions, if you will.
So, you know, having the capability and the permission to do this is one thing. Whether or not it has an effect on the battlefield is another. I want to ask if you agree with this assessment. The Wall Street Journal says U.S. ATACMS and other long-range weapons, such as Britain's Storm Shadow cruise missile, have not been game changers for Ukraine. Is that true? Is that accurate?
I think.
If this is what they are asserting in the piece, why does Ukraine want them and need them so badly?
Well, first off, it gets into the rhetoric. Game changer, I think, is a little bit of an overworked term. You know, everybody says game changer. You know, business loves the term game changer. I don't think it's changed anything in a major strategic way across the board. I do think that they have been pivotal in hitting key targets, command and control targets, deep strike targets, taking out key logistics nodes. And some of this stuff, you say, well, it didn't change the whole war. Yeah, but there's a lot of things that Russia coulda, shoulda, woulda done that they couldn't do because they were hit with storm shadows or they were hit with deep strike ATACMS. And so it really gets in the devil's in the details where you go back and say, well, we took out this thing here, and because we took out this here, they weren't able to, you know, launch an offensive operation here with sufficient capabilities, and it gets kind of complicated. So, yeah, I would agree. Did it change the game? No. Did it make a difference? Yeah, I think they made a difference.
Yeah. I mean, war is about addition and subtraction. You've told me that before. Hal Kempfer, as always, thanks so much. Talk soon.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.